To really set the tone for what we're about to unpack, I want to kick off with this quote, straight from Trent Barrister. He said, "Big, bad, the size of 3 men, claws as long as my forearm, ripped apart a whole squad of us. This isn't just some random monster out there in the wasteland. It's a living, breathing, shrieking statement, A testament to a world gone horribly wrong and maybe the ultimate horrifying consequence of unchecked science."
Oh, absolutely. It's more than just another wasteland creature. It really embodies a living nightmare, that visceral fear Deathclaws inspire. It's universal among anyone who's survived out there, and for really good reason. What's truly fascinating and yet deeply disturbing about them isn't just the raw physical power or the terrifying presence. It's the whole story behind them. Their origins, how their biology was meticulously crafted for pure lethality, and then there's this truly tragic chapter in their history. It says so much about humanity, our capacity for incredible creation, but also profound cruelty. We'll be digging into all of that today, trying to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights about these apex predators.
Okay, let's unpack this first part, because this is where the Deathclaw story gets, really interesting and honestly, pretty chilling. When we think about creatures in the wasteland, post-nuclear world, we picture these weird anomalies born from fallout, animals twisted by the bombs that ended everything. But Deathclaws, they're fundamentally different. They're not a product of random, chaotic mutation. They didn't just naturally evolve from lizards or whatever. No, they are something far more deliberate. And in a lot of ways, much, much scarier because of it.
Precisely. That's the key insight here, and it's such a critical distinction. It just elevates the horror of what they represent. Deathclaws are a race of genetically engineered reptilian creatures. They represent a conscious, calculated act of creation, a weapon designed and built, not just some random consequence of the war. And that origin story doesn't just explain what they are. It tells you so much about the pre-war world's priorities, the disturbing depths of its scientific ambition. They were designed, purpose-built for a very specific and, frankly, very dark reason.
A deliberate act. So we're not talking about some rogue scientist in a hidden lab playing God, then.
This was a clear military mandate, straight from the United States government itself. Just think about that for a second. The implications? Imagine the meeting where this project got the green light. The initial idea for the Deathclaw was alarmingly straightforward. They were developed for high-risk battlefield operations. Simple as that. But the motivation behind creating such a terrifying, monstrous weapon, even more chillingly pragmatic, they wanted a cheap, cost-effective replacement for human troops, especially during heavy-duty combat operations.
Cheap, cost-effective replacement for human troops. Wow, that phrase just hangs in the air, doesn't it? Was human life considered that expendable, or maybe, ironically, so precious in some ways that they'd rather engineer these biological nightmares than send their own soldiers into the meat grinder? What do you think that says about the pre-war mentality, this willingness to outsource the brutal parts of war? It's like a dark mirror reflecting humanity's own ruthlessness back at itself.
It really does. It reveals this deeply disturbing, utilitarian view of warfare, where living weapons could be mass-produced, deployed, without the same political or social fallout as human casualties. It's a cold, calculated decision, dehumanizing conflict by swapping soldiers for engineered beasts, removing the moral weight from the strategists. This chilling pragmatism, it really underscores the sort of moral bankruptcy that was setting in even before the bombs fell. It wasn't about saving lives, really. It was about winning wars without the perceived inconvenience of human losses. But getting to that final product, that towering engine of destruction, the genetic tinkering had to start somewhere. And the blueprint, it's surprisingly specific.
Which brings us to the chameleon thing. Jackson's chameleons. I mean, that's not exactly the first animal that springs to mind when you think apex predator design, is it?
But if you dig into it, it's actually incredibly telling, and in a twisted way, a testament to the sophistication of the geneticists involved. So the initial work focused on various animal species, but the primary test subjects were Jackson's chameleons. Seems weird, but think about what makes a chameleon effective. Their patience. Their ability to blend in, that sudden, explosive, lightning-fast strike for prey, the projectile tongue snatching an insect. The scientists weren't just looking for something that looked cool. They were dissecting the very essence of ambush predation, silent lethality. They took those core predatory instincts, the quiet approach, the sudden, overwhelming strike, and then they scaled it way up, added brute force, and ditched the camouflage for something far more terrifyingly overt. It's almost like they took the idea of a chameleon's hunting skill and weaponized it into this massive brute, creating something both cunning in its design and just overwhelmingly powerful in execution. They basically extracted the predatory software and jammed it into much bigger, much more aggressive hardware.
That's a brilliant way to put it. So not just a big lizard. They were crafting a
super soldier with a chameleon's cunning, but amplified to grotesque levels. But then, it sounds like things got even more messed up. You mentioned a megalomaniacal master and this forced evolutionary virus, FEV. This is where the horror really ramps up, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. The FEV's twisted touch is where an already dangerous weapon got turned into something even more abominable. Their physiology was later grotesquely refined, as the sources put it, by the megalomaniacal master, using the forced evolutionary virus. Now, FEV, for anyone not familiar, is basically this pre-war bioweapon designed to rapidly mutate organisms, often with just devastating, unpredictable results. It's the same stuff responsible for creating super mutants, those big, green, hulking guys we know from the wasteland. But here with Deathclaws, it wasn't about starting from scratch. It was about taking an already dangerous blueprint and just pushing it to grotesque extremes. The master didn't just mutate them, he enhanced them, maximized their destructive potential, added another layer of pure horror to their already dark creation story. He didn't create them, but he absolutely perfected them for his own twisted vision of a new world, a world where they'd be his tools of conquest and terror.
So if the original government designers were trying to make a cheap, effective combat unit, the master basically took that concept, turned the dial way past 10, and created true monsters. Biological engines of pure destruction. It's a terrifying thought. Taking a weapon designed by a government and then having some mad scientist improve on it for his own nightmare agenda, making it even more potent.
Exactly. It's a classic trajectory for military tech, isn't it? Once the genie's out of the bottle, it can be twisted by anyone with enough ambition. And speaking of groups with dark ambitions, we have to talk about the Enclave. Their potential involvement adds another layer of mystery here. The sources state it's ambiguous whether the Enclave had any input into the Deathclaw creation before or after the Great War. We don't know for sure. However, members of their apocalyptic division apparently noted that the genetic manipulation that birthed the species had a similar strong design to their own projects.
Similar strong design. That sounds ominous. The Enclave, with their whole history of biological warfare, genetic experiments, was this just like professional appreciation from one group of mad scientists to another? Or were they actively involved? Maybe trying to make them even better?
That's the profoundly disturbing question, isn't it? Were they continuing that same pursuit of biological weapons, maybe trying to create an even stronger design, like the sources hint at elsewhere, building on what the government and the master had already done? Or were they just observing, appreciating a similar, equally ruthless approach to warfare that kind of mirrored their own philosophies, control, genetic purity, all that stuff? The very idea that these creatures align with Enclave design principles is just chilling in itself. It hints at this continuous dark ambition that seems to transcend specific factions, a shared human desire for ultimate control through biology. It suggests that even if they weren't the original creators, they recognized the terrifying genius in the Deathclaw's design, saw its potential for their own apocalyptic goals, maybe even tinkered with them themselves to make them even more deadly.
And all of this twisted history, all this genetic meddling, the military goals, the FEV, the master, maybe the Enclave, it all leads to the ultimate irony, right? These things getting loose. What happens when the bombs finally drop and the world ends?
After the nuclear devastation of the Great War, the carefully contained horrors found their freedom. Living specimens of the new species escaped containment and fled into the wilderness. Simple as that. Catastrophic consequence. These creatures, designed for controlled warfare in specific battlefields, were suddenly free. Free to adapt, free to evolve in a world utterly changed. And they did more than just survive. They evolved to become an apex predator of the post-nuclear ecosystem of the wasteland. This isn't just about adapting to radiation. This is about a perfectly designed killing machine finding its true, unrestrained calling. They didn't just find a niche in the new world, they dominated it, became the undisputed rulers of the food chain. And that's why they appear as this reoccurring threat throughout the Fallout series, a constant horrifying reminder of pre-war hubris run wild.
Just imagine that. A weapon designed by humans, refined by a madman, possibly tinkered with by a shadowy government remnant, then let loose to breed and thrive in the ruins of the very world it was meant to fight for. It's the ultimate terrible irony, isn't it? The very thing created to serve humanity becoming the ultimate terrifying master of its ruins. So if you were out there in the wasteland just trying to survive, this isn't just some random monster you bump into. It's a living monument to humanity's ambition, its hubris, its catastrophic failure. That's the horror you'd face. A physical manifestation of all the bad decisions that led to the end of the world, staring you down with those glowing eyes. Okay, so we've traced the twisted origins of the Deathclaw, how they became these ultimate self-made monsters. But now, let's really dig into the what. What are they physically?
What are their abilities? What makes them such an effective, utterly terrifying predator that can make even the most hardened wasteland survivor just break down? You might think, okay, big angry lizard, but the details of their biology, truly chilling, a testament to that deliberate, horrifying design.
It's like someone went down a checklist for the ultimate predator in a lab.
Let's start with just their sheer size, that imposing physique, that quote we heard from Trent Barrister, big, bad, the size of 3 men. That really paints a picture of something just overwhelming.
They're described as a large, carnivorous, bipedal reptilian species, standard description. But that size of 3 men part, it's not really an exaggeration. It's a common, terrified description that emphasizes their dominant physical presence. Standing roughly 9, maybe 10 feet tall, a Deathclaw isn't just large, it's a towering, intimidating silhouette against the ruined skyline. Their sheer bulk alone makes them formidable. A walking wall of muscle, thick scales, and bone, capable of shrugging off damage that would drop lesser creatures instantly. Just seeing one in the distance is enough to turn your blood cold.
And then, the signature weapon. The ultimate tool of terror. Those claws, they're not just big, they're legendary for their destructive power. You hear stories tearing through metal, never mind flesh.
They have 5 fingers on each hand, each ending in a sharp talon. Okay. And these aren't little cat claws. They can be as long as my forearm. Just picture that. A blade that size, honed sharp, growing right out of its hand. What makes them truly terrifying is their horrifying efficiency. They are capable of bisecting an unarmed human in mere seconds. Designed for rapid, brutal dismemberment, the sheer speed and force of the destruction. That's what makes an encounter so utterly catastrophic. 1 second you're standing there, the next you're not even in one piece anymore. They don't just kill, they reduce you to fragments. A truly gruesome end that serves as a terrifying warning.
A quick, brutal end, yeah. But what about actually trying to stop one? Is it even possible? They seem incredibly tough, like almost invulnerable to normal weapons. How do you even fight something designed to just shrug off most attacks?
That's where their relentless durability comes in. Another crucial part of their design, and an absolute nightmare for anyone facing them. They possess tough skin, right? Provides excellent defense against bladed and edged weapons. It's not just the thin hide. Think natural armor, almost like chitin, dense and resilient, capable of deflecting hits from knives, swords, even a lot of small arms fire. And get this, some variants, like the hairy Deathclaws, even develop a thick fur layer, adding another layer to their resilience, making them even better at withstanding attacks, especially from maybe the elements or less powerful weapons. Thanks to their astounding speed and sheer ferocity, they've been observed running on all 4s when charging prey, which lets them cover ground incredibly fast. They just become this low-slung, muscle-bound blur heading straight for you. Once they reach their victim, they rip apart victims with frightening efficiency. This isn't just about raw strength, though they have plenty of that. The ripping musculature provides superior strength, excellent speed, and incredible resilience in most combat situations. It's about overwhelming the target, a relentless, merciless assault, making escape nearly impossible once you're in their sights. Think about that moment of panic. You see it, it sees you, and before you can even process the threat, it's already halfway there, moving like some kind of nightmare train.
And I guess their senses would just compound that, make escape even more impossible. They don't just see you, they know you're there, don't they?
Absolutely. They are incredibly aware of their surroundings, essential for an apex predator, right? Deathclaws possess excellent hearing and an acute sense of smell, which lets them detect even hidden enemies. This means there's basically no hiding from a Deathclaw. Zero. They don't rely just on sight like we do. They hear the faintest rustle of your clothes from 100 yards. They smell your fierce sweat on the wind. The only weakness noted in our sources, or maybe not a weakness, but the only thing that can sometimes deter them, keep them at bay. Bright flares or concentrated light, which implies most other methods, stealth, deterrence, largely ineffective. Amplifying that sense of dread you mentioned. You can't sneak past them. You can't outwit their primal senses. Once you're in their territory, you're usually found.
So, smart, fast, tough, hit like a freight train, and they can find you no matter what. Truly the ultimate killing machine. But these aren't just solitary hunters wandering around, are they? They reproduce. And that adds this whole other layer of terror, turning individual threats into this persistent, self-sustaining nightmare.
Their grisly reproduction is indeed a crucial piece of the puzzle. It shifts them from just being occasional threats to being a fundamental, terrifying part of the wasteland ecosystem. Deathclaws are an oviparous species, meaning the alpha female lays large eggs, usually in clutches, and these eggs themselves, pretty substantial, weighing up to 12 pounds, 5.5 kilograms each. That's like a small bowling ball, a solid, leathery casing holding a developing monster inside. What's vital for their survival and absolutely terrifying for wastelanders is that these eggs are fiercely guarded in sheltered, secluded areas by the pack mother. If you find Deathclaw eggs, you're not just dealing with one potential beast. You've unknowingly walked right into a fiercely protected nest.
Okay, we've gone through the chilling mechanics of the Deathclaw, their terrifying biology, their unnatural origins as this military weapon designed for pure destruction. But there's this chapter in their history. It transforms them from just being monsters into figures of profound tragedy.
What happens when the very weapon you create starts to think? If you connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals this profound human fear. Fear of being surpassed, fear of losing control over something we once thought was just a tool or inferior. It's not just a story about monsters in the usual sense. It's about the monsters we make, and maybe the monsters we become when we're faced with the unsettling evolution of our own creations.
And the group responsible for this particular chilling twist in their story was, well, maybe unsurprisingly, the Enclave again. Tell us about their dark experiments here, because it wasn't just about making them more lethal this time, was it? It was something else entirely.
No, not just lethality. In 2235, the Enclave, always looking for ultimate control, always seeking superior weapons, they initiated experiments capturing Deathclaws. Their method, exposing them to FEV again, but this time specifically to boost their intelligence and articulation. Their goal wasn't to create equals or foster coexistence, nothing like that. It was to develop more compliant, effective biological weapons. They wanted intelligent tools, controllable assets that could understand and follow complex commands, not independent beings capable of free will or, God forbid, morality. This is such a crucial distinction. It highlights the Enclave's core desire for dominion, their cold, calculated approach to genetics. They didn't seek understanding. They sought a smarter, more adaptable servant of war.
So they were trying to engineer a smarter, more controllable Deathclaw, a super-intelligent weapon. But what they accidentally found was something completely unexpected, something that led to this brief, almost miraculous glimmer of peace in the otherwise desolate, violent wasteland. The very creatures they wanted to control started choosing a totally different path.
Yes, exactly that. The first successful intelligent pack was discovered in Vault 13. And what's astonishing about these creatures, led by this strong alpha male named Gruthar, is that they developed a unique culture and an almost pacifist philosophy. They actively strove for coexistence with humans. They aimed to minimize their impact on the world. Just imagine that. A monstrous creation designed purely for destruction, actively choosing peace, trying to bridge the gap with its creators. Our sources even mention that Gruthar showed profound respect for human life, demonstrating a level of empathy, ethical consideration that often seemed to elude their human creators. And his companion, Goris, could even speak human languages, making their sentience completely undeniable and, frankly, unnervingly human-like in its capacity for communication, for reasoned thought. This wasn't just instinct anymore. This was intellect.
That's incredible, especially given where they came from. It's a testament maybe to the idea that even beings born from violence can aspire to something better. They forged a peaceful home inside Vault 13.
They did. For a time, anyway. This intelligent pack managed to forge a peaceful home within the now empty Vault 13. Now, it's important to get the timeline right here because it adds another layer to the tragedy. The Enclave had previously kidnapped the human population of Vault 13 back in 2242, killed some, rounded up the rest for their own nasty purposes. After that, these intelligent Deathclaws adopted the empty vault as their new home. So you had this period, however brief, where these intelligent Deathclaws were living peacefully, trying to understand things, all inside the very structure humanity built as a sanctuary, but ultimately failed itself. They even established some kind of rapport with their Enclave handlers for a while, probably unaware of the bigger, sinister intentions behind the experiments. They saw a chance for mutual respect, maybe.
But like so many fragile hopes in the wasteland, this glimmer of peace was just brutally snuffed out. What happened to this unique society, these intelligent, peace-seeking Deathclaws? It feels like the ultimate betrayal is coming.
It was exactly that, the ultimate betrayal. On May 17th, 2242, an extermination squad led by Secret Service agent Frank Horrigan was dispatched to the vault. Horrigan, notorious figure, known for his brutality, his unwavering loyalty to the Enclave, he successfully wiped out the intelligent Deathclaws. Our sources note that someone named Zarn was the only survivor due to not being present in the vault at the time, which just emphasizes the near total annihilation of this unique community. A brutal act of extermination, driven purely by fear, not by any real necessity. A complete and brutal wipeout of an entire burgeoning culture. The Enclave just couldn't stomach something they couldn't completely control.
And their motivation. The Enclave's reason for this horrific act, it couldn't have just been about eliminating a perceived threat, could it? It sounds deeper, more insidious than that. What profound insecurity drove them to just annihilate them completely?
Absolutely. The chilling reason behind this massacre, it was profoundly psychological, ideological even. The Enclave feared the intelligence they had created, plain and simple. They doubted the Deathclaw's morality, despite evidence like Gruthar, who showed profound respect for human life. But fundamentally, they were unwilling to allow them to surpass their human creators. This wasn't just fear of a weapon turning on them. It was the profound existential dread of being surpassed. The Enclave, obsessed with human purity, human dominance, they could not tolerate a creation that not only achieved sentience, but also chose a path of peace and understanding. Proving themselves arguably more moral than their creators, it challenged their entire supremacist ideology, their very identity as humanity's saviors. Faced with this perceived threat to their intellectual and moral superiority, they chose total annihilation over control.
The intelligent Deathclaws. It's not just some side note in wasteland history, it's a tragic horror story, a profound commentary on humanity itself, even when a monstrous creation, born from our own dark ambition and engineering, actually seeks peace, seeks coexistence. Our insecurity when faced with something new and maybe better can just brutally extinguish that hope. The ultimate irony, really, is that the creatures designed to be humanity's weapons ended up showing more humanity than their creators ever did. From a cold, calculated military project designed to be a cheap, disposable replacement for human soldiers to a creature grotesquely refined by a megalomaniac, and then to this brief, almost poetic glimmer of intelligence and peace, only to be brutally annihilated by the very fear and hubris that created them in the first place. It's just cyclical tragedy, truly. This creature is both a monster and, in a way, a victim of humanity's darkest impulses.
Well, this pretty much concludes our deep dive into the Deathclaw's journey, a creature that started as this cold, calculated military weapon and evolved into the dominant, terrifying force that stalks the wasteland today. We've seen the whole trajectory, from genetically engineered battlefield replacements, twisted further by FEV into engines of pure terror, to becoming the ultimate apex predators of the post-nuclear world, an ever-present, horrifying threat. They are a living, screaming monument to the dangers of unchecked ambition, a consequence that humanity absolutely unleashed upon itself.
It's a horrifying legacy indeed.